Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye coverage of the 2014 elections continues. We're interviewing Dana Duncan of Port Edwards. He's a Democrat running in the 72nd Assembly District. Dana, welcome back to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you.
Programming note, Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. Dana, I always like to start when I interview you with your experience as president of the Port Edwards School Board. Because here's my question. In the next state budget, what would you push for as a member of the Assembly in terms of helping not just the Port Edwards School District, but K-12 schools? Go.
Well, we need to restore the funding. The statements being made right now in the governor's race by the incumbent that they've increased funding is just a bold-faced fabrication. They've continually cut funding. When the costs associated with it go up and the amount that's coming into the equalization formula does not meet that level, that's a cut. So that's a key portion. Second, we need to redo the equalization formula. Superintendent Evers has made a proposal which I think is a great fine start. Ultimately, what's happening with the equalization formula is that smaller districts and rural districts are really getting hammered if they have declining enrollment and declining property tax bases. So it's a double whammy. So you have cuts, and then you have the equalization formula basically reducing the funds more. It's really hitting districts, not just smaller districts. In my neighboring district, Wisconsin Rapids, I know they're facing a large problem because of this. The third factor is I would do everything I could to put an end to the separate but equal school system that we're establishing with vouchers.
Vouchers and choice.
Correct, because...
So you'd shut it down, if it were up to you, you'd shut it down entirely in the next budget, even for those two large cities in southeast Wisconsin, Milwaukee and Racine?
Milwaukee and Racine pose specific problems in and of themselves, and I don't want to say that I know enough about that situation to make a statement. But I know enough about other school districts to know that those vouchers and choice systems are not necessary. I was told a long time ago by my grandfather, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And when a state is number 1 or 2 consistently in education, and then you try to create a new system to instill privatization, I don't understand that.
So you referred to the growing choice and vouchers program as a separate but equal program.
Correct. I think it's really setting up potentially. No one can articulate clearly what happens with those with learning disabilities, with special needs, and what seems to be happening is most of them are left in the public schools, which puts a larger burden on the public schools. It's our responsibility as a public school system to handle or represent all children, and to do so to the best of our abilities. This other system does not have those same requirements, and as a result, they get to select who they want. So it's an unfair advantage too, because they can determine which students they'll accept, and then, surprise, surprise, test scores may be higher in them, which seems to then imply that they're doing better than all the rest of us.
Since we spoke prior to the primary, Governor Walker has called for the withdrawal or the repeal of Common Core standards. Your reaction to that, sir?
Well, it's a lot of nothing. Common Core is nothing more than a benchmark. It's a finishing line. It has no real value as far as indoctrination. I've heard that word used multiple times. I've looked at it. I've done the materials. We apply that in Port Edwards. I don't see why people are going so bonkers over this particular issue, other than it's a touchstone issue that they continuously will try to put up to rally their base.
Real quickly, do you have an estimate of what your school district has spent on to phase in the Common Core standards?
I don't have that number right at hand. I don't think it's been significant. We've been having systems and the testing, the WKSE,
yes, Wisconsin Knowledge Standards, something.
Yeah,
like that.
we had that for a number of years, and we just transferred over. We did the sample testing for what Common Core will be this last year. I don't think there's going to be a huge change. I think more than likely the students aren't even going to realize or know that there's a difference in the test. Other than the methodology, I think there's more, instead of writing, it's more computer generated, if I remember correctly. What they're really going to be, and I don't see that there's been any major cost or change in it. Nothing that I was aghast at when the budget process came through. Now, admittedly, we haven't had our next budget come through because most of that's tied to what our equalization formula numbers are going to be, which doesn't come up to until October. We're a non-unified board, so we have to have an annual meeting, and that's usually the middle of October, and so we don't even have that information until October.
Well, I apologize. I've spent so much on schools. I've got plenty of other issues to cover. Transportation funding, the Taxpayers Alliance says if we continue to spend only what we did in 2013 on transportation programs, over 10 years we'll be $2 billion short. You think there is a deficit? How would you fix it if there is one?
There is a deficit. The Legislative Reference Bureau says, I believe it's $680 million.
650 to 680 potentially. Now that's just over the next biennium. And excuse
Correct,
me for
and it's only going to get a larger gap thereafter. This is where, and I'm going to do something that I don't do often, is sometimes you have to stand up and say you'll take leadership, and I'll just look right into the public and say that if we need to raise taxes in order to fund our roads, which are the lifeblood of economic development in the state, we will need to raise taxes. And I have enough, I have the stomach to say something and to take leadership instead of equivocating and being politically and waffling about, well, we don't know and what we may have to do.
Are you talking gas tax or the $75 a year that you and I pay to register our vehicles? Or
right
both?
now, possibly both. I would have to look at the numbers.
Okay.
Right now, the gas tax as a percentage of gas has not gone up in, I think it's close to a decade almost, and it's gone down as gas prices have gone up. And then on top of it, the $75 a year we're paying for registration is the lowest, I believe, in the Midwest and one of the lowest in the country. You know, the days of thinking that we can borrow or we can just kick the can down the road in order to develop our state for economic development are gone. You have to take responsibility and say exactly what you mean, and sometimes it takes some leadership, something that I don't think has always been done in Madison. And specifically, my opponent, I don't think has always exercised that type of leadership.
Let me ask you a health care question. As you know, 1 in 5 Wisconsin residents get their health care from our Medicaid program. The American Hospital Association says our reimbursement rates for Medicaid are the second lowest in the nation. Have you studied the issue? Do you think those rates should be increased, sir?
I know a lot of doctors. I deal with a lot of doctors. I'm a Social Security disability attorney by trade, so most of my clients are either on Badger Care or trying to get on the Medicare system. I think the rates are low. It's creating an undue hardship for the hospitals and clinics, and it's a double whammy because on top of the fact that we have these low rates, we're not covering everybody. The governor has refused the Medicaid expansion, and what ends up happening is these people still need medical care, so they go to hospitals, and then they don't pay the bills. And so the hospitals then have limits on what they can charge Medicaid, and then on top of it have to eat bills that should have been paid by Medicaid but aren't because we didn't expand the system. it just raises the overall rates and costs for everybody for that health care. Rates that, one of the primary reasons I think why Wisconsin versus, say, our neighbor to the west, Minnesota, have substantially lower insurance premiums than we have in Wisconsin.
So you would push for Wisconsin to take the federal offer to pay for the Medicaid expansion?
Yes.
Okay. I know that there will be a bill next session that would legalize the medical use of marijuana. Traveling with that issue is a recreational use. Your position on those two questions?
Well, in my previous existence, before I did Social Security, I was a criminal defense lawyer for a number of years. So I've seen marijuana. I think I don't know. I haven't really thought in depth about whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I would have to see the bill and understand what's involved. I think there's too many sham prescriptions being given out in some states that have authorized it. It's, if you watch any of the television programs where they talk about it, like sitcoms and such, is a big joke about how they will give it to you for almost any reason at all. If that's the case, then I don't think I could support it. I do know that marijuana and THC specifically have positive benefits for things such as glaucoma and for chronic pain syndromes. But I don't know if it necessarily has to be authorized in this context.
You sound like you would have then concerns about the recreational use of marijuana?
We have a long way to go before we can talk about recreational use. We're still trying to get a handle on alcohol consumption and driving. I don't know if we're anywhere close to being able to add to that now THC and expect law enforcement to both handle it and to deal with what would probably end up being an unfunded mandate of trying to test for it. So that we got a long way to go before we can get to that point.
Related to the use of alcohol, it was an issue in the Attorney General's race. Do you support first offense, drunken driving, as a crime?
I don't understand, and I never have understood why we in Wisconsin have a civil forfeiture as a first offense drunk driving. We're the only state that does. It creates all kinds of bizarre abnormalities in the law, so it's not uniform. I don't understand how you can potentially be charged with a crime for singing in the Capitol, but can't be for having a .12 BAC as a first offense.
One of the first bills passed last session allowed Gogebi Taconite to seek a permit to build that open pit iron mine in Ashland and Iron counties. Do you think that bill should be amended or revisited in the next session?
Yes.
You want to elaborate? Are you saying you don't support the mine?
I don't support the mine at all.
Why?
Almost every headwater in the state of Wisconsin starts in that vicinity. Do we want to leave our children the benefits of maybe 20 or 30 jobs in northern Wisconsin? Or do we want to leave our children with clean water, good hunting, good fishing, an environment that they can enjoy and that will sustain a quality of life for generations? There are so many problems with that mine. I think that it needs to not only be revisited, but revisited immediately and eliminated. I don't see any benefit. Now, on top of it, just the taint of some of the things that have been in the press lately.
That news story on
Correct.
700,000 campaign contributions by?
Correct.
Okay.
It's bringing into Wisconsin things that I, as a seventh generation Wisconsinite, do not appreciate. I do not want Wisconsin to be called North Chicago.
Okay. And then finally, I want to give you a chance to highlight differences with your opponent on November 4, the incumbent, Representative Krug.
Well, I come into this with a broad breadth of experience. I've touched on a few things in my profession as a lawyer. I've done everything from property to probate, so law legislation is not going to be new to me. I've had experiences in dealing with people on a large thing. I really think that the real issue here is that when I make a promise and a pledge, I will keep it. If I don't believe I should or could keep it, I'm not going to make it. I am not going to say here today that I won't take per diem, because, you know, to say anything like that and then turn around a year later and take it wouldn't be disingenuous. I won't do that. To take a stand on the groundwater and central animal feeding operations, which is a huge issue in the 72nd, I came out early. I looked at the issue, I studied it, I came to conclusions. I didn't look at what was the politically expedient method, whose toes I would be stepping on when I decided to make the decision. I don't come in at the last minute and make a benign statement that I want a moratorium when clearly the DNR won't even make a decision on it until after the election. So those are the differences. It's called leadership, and sometimes leadership means taking a stand for things. Sometimes that means taking responsibility and ownership and saying things that you need to. I want to make sure that control is left to the people in the communities, the school boards, the city councils, the townships, instead of everything seeming to be centralized more and more in Madison. I believe in economic development, and I believe that tourism is going to be, for the 72nd, the future of our area. As we see a continued decline in paper needs, we're not going to get large manufacturing necessarily to move in. But we have a very beautiful area. We have a lot of development. We have lakes and the Wisconsin River in the immediate area. We have a lot of tourism already, and I'd like to see that grow. I don't always necessarily believe that my opponent has been on the forefront of helping to promote that. So those are the primary differences as I see them.
Very good. Thank you. Dana Duncan of Port Edwards is a Democrat running in the 72nd Assembly District. The election is November 4. Dana, thanks for talking to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you.
Thank you.